Shalom, my name is Tony Robinson of Restoration of Torah Ministries, and I want to welcome you to the Haftarah Connections Lectures. This week is Torah portion Vayechi, which is the last Torah portion in the book of Bereshit, or the book of Genesis. The Torah portion extends from Genesis chapter 47, verse 28, all the way through Genesis chapter 50, verse 26. And the Haftarah reading is taken from 1 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. And as we say every week, why was 1 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 through 12 chosen as the Haftarah reading for Parashat Vayechi? And so what we want to do is we want to answer that question. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the scriptures thematically. We're going to compare the Torah portion Vayechi, with 1 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. And we're going to look for the thematic connections, the thematic similarities, the similar words, phrases, events, circumstances, etc. And what we're going to see is that once we find those, that we will have found the basis for choosing the Haftarah reading. And then hopefully we'll learn a few other extra goodies along the way. The first connection that we want to bring to you is 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 1, where it says, "Now the days of David drew near that he should die, and he charged his son Solomon, saying," okay? And so that right there is thematically connected to Genesis chapter 47, verse 28. It states, "When the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him." Okay, and so actually in this first thematic connection, there are actually two connections, or maybe even three. First of all, it says, the days of David drew near that he should die, okay? And then in the Torah portion, it says, when the time drew near that Israel must die. Okay, so those are two clearly thematically connected phrases. These are a similar event where both of them were about to die. That's the first connection. The second connection, it says, and he charged his son Solomon. Okay, in other words, he had Solomon come to him. That's connected to when it says of Jacob, he called his son Joseph. And then the third connection is that both David and the patriarch Jacob then charged or said something to their son. Both of them spoke to them about things that they wanted done at their death. So that's our first connection. Now, another connection that we want to look at is 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 4. And listen to this. It says, the first part of the phrase I won't mention, but the last phrase, it says, that the Lord may fulfill his word which he spoke. In other words, David was talking to Solomon. He gave him some instructions, and he said, this is so that Adonai could fulfill the word which he spoke. In other words, Adonai had made certain promises to David about Solomon reigning after him. And those were promised to David by the word of Adonai. And so David is letting him know that the plans and the plans that he's giving and the charge that he's giving to Solomon, that those were from Adonai, and that by doing these things, he will fulfill Adonai's word. Well, that's thematically connected to Genesis chapter 48, verse 21, where it says, "Then Israel said to Joseph, Behold, I am dying, but God will be with you and bring you back to the land of your fathers." Okay? So again, the idea here is it's very similar to the Haftarah reading, where in this case, Jacob is charging his son Joseph, and he's telling Joseph about things that Adonai promised. Specifically, Adonai promised that he would bring that even though the children of Israel were in Egypt, and even though they were going to be there for a long time, he promised that at one point he would return, and that he would bring them up out of the land of Egypt, and thus fulfill his word. And so Jacob is letting Joseph know this and understand this on his deathbed. Okay, here's another one. How about the same verse, 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 4, where it says that the Lord may fulfill his word which he spoke. But this time, let's look at Genesis chapter 50, verse 24. And we'll see a similar connection. It says, and Joseph said to his brethren, I am dying. Okay, so now this time it's Joseph who is dying, and he's speaking to his brethren. It says, I am dying, but God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land. Okay, he's referencing the same promise that his father Jacob had given to him on his deathbed. Okay, and so we can see again, quite clearly why the Haftarah reading is connected to the Torah portion through these first scenes in both stories where you have the death of a patriarch in Israel, and he is giving a charge to his son. Okay, let's look again at 1 Kings chapter 2 verse 4. It says, and he said, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. You shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. We want to pay attention to that last phrase, and we want to compare that to Genesis chapter 49 verse 10. Now, going back to 1 Kings 2:4, the idea here is that Adonai is talking about the kingship or the rulership over the nation of Israel. Okay, he's talking about the fact that there will always be someone on that throne of Israel. Well, that's thematically connected to Genesis 49:10, and this is the promise that's given to the tribe of Judah. It says, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet. Okay, and I think that is a beautiful connection there. Again, that one is one that could be kind of easy to kind of gloss over and not see, but that's a beautiful connection because both verses are speaking about the rulership or kingship in Israel. How about 1 Kings chapter 2 verse 5? It says, moreover, you know also what Joab the son of Zeruiah did to me. And you see, you have with you Shimei, the son of Gera, who cursed me. Okay? Now, what David's talking about here is he's talking about two individuals who wronged him in his lifetime. He's talking about Joab. Now, Joab actually did a few things that were wrong. Not only, first of all, he killed two of the other commanders of Israel. I think it was Amasa he killed, and can't remember the other person. I should know that. But he killed Amasa innocently. And also, when Adonijah tried to take over the kingship, which is what this chapter is all about, 1 Kings 1, chapters 1 through 2 is about the Adonijah's rebellion. When Adonijah tried to rebel and usurp the kingdom, the throne from Solomon, Joab actually sided with Adonijah. Okay, and so David is saying, "Hey, you know what he did to me," and I think this is what David's talking about. And then also, remember when Absalom, when he tried to take over the kingdom, as David was leaving and as he left Jerusalem, he was met by a man named Shimei, and Shimei cursed at David and railed at him and threw dust into the air and threw rocks and stones, and one of David's men said, would you mind if I just kind of take his head off? And David had mercy on Shimei, and so David said, no, just let him go ahead and keep railing, because Adonai has told him to rail. And so David is making reference here to Shimei. Okay, and so he's saying, now I want you to remember what these guys did, because during David's lifetime he extended mercy to them. Okay, but that's not going to last forever. And so anyway, this verse is thematically connected to Genesis chapter 50 verse 15. Excuse me, it says, when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, perhaps Joseph will hate us and may actually repay us for all the evil which we did to him. And so again, this is a beautiful connection between the Haftarah and the Torah portion, and it involves the fact that during the lifetime of David and during the lifetime of Joseph, there were people who wronged David and there were people who wronged Joseph. And the idea here is that now that someone has died, there is the potential for repayment of evil. Now, in the case of the Haftarah reading, this is exactly what's going to happen. Once David passes away and Solomon takes over the kingdom, David is charging Solomon to make sure that he repays Joab and Shimei for how they treated him in his moments of weakness. However, in the Torah portion, the brothers, after seeing that Jacob, their father, had died, they thought that maybe Joseph would nurse hatred against them for how they treated him, selling him into slavery, and all of the hatred that they had for him. And so that's the common connection here, is that after the death, there's the potential for a repayment of those who had wrongfully used other people. Now, we can also see this. Let's look in Genesis chapter 50, verses 16 through 17. It says, "So they sent messengers to Joseph, saying, before your father died, he commanded, saying, Thus shall you say to Joseph, I beg you, please forgive the trespass of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. Now, please forgive the trespass of the servants of the God of your father. And Joseph wept." It says, and Joseph wept when they spoke to him. Okay? And so here we see what's happening here is we see that the brothers are trying to secure forgiveness. Okay? They're trying to secure forgiveness from Joseph. They don't want Joseph to lash out after them now that Jacob, their father, has died. Now what we want to do is we want to look at 1 Kings chapter 2, verses 5 through 9, and we want to see that there are three people that David is instructing Solomon about. He's instructing Solomon about Joab, he's instructing him about Shimei, and also a man by the name of Barzillai. Okay? So let's look at verse 6. It says, "Therefore do according to your wisdom, and do not let his gray hair go down to the grave in peace." Now what he's talking about Joab there. So he's basically telling Solomon, you are going to have to kill him. You are going to have to deal with him. Okay? So that's one person right there. And if we look in 1 Kings chapter 2 verse 9, he is addressing Solomon and charging him what he should do about Shimei. And he says, "Now therefore do not hold him guiltless, for you are a wise man and know what you ought to do to him. But bring his gray hair down to the grave with blood." So with both of these individuals, they will be repaid for the evil that they did to David during the times of weakness in his life. Unlike Shimei and Joab, though, the brothers of Joseph, they are going to receive mercy. And so there's one other person in this story in 1 Kings chapter 2 who was more thematically connected to Joseph's brothers, and that's Barzillai. So let's read in 1 Kings chapter 2 verse 7. It says, "But show kindness to the sons of Barzillai the Gileadite, and let them be among those who eat at your table. For so they came to me when I fled from Absalom your brother." Okay? So in this instance, with Barzillai, Barzillai was going to receive blessing, and Barzillai's descendants were going to receive blessing as a result of the good treatment that he gave to David when David fled from Absalom. And so we can see here that some of the major themes that we see in this Torah portion are the idea of rewards and punishment delivered to individuals depending on how they treated someone. And these rewards and punishments are going to be meted out after someone's death. In the Torah portion, there was going to be grace, and there was going to be mercy, and there was going to be peace and shalom extended to the brothers of Joseph despite their evil deeds, and that was going to occur, and that occurred after the death of Jacob. Whereas in the Haftarah reading, for Joab and for Shimei, they were going to receive judgment, and for Barzillai the Gileadite, again, he and his descendants were to receive peace and blessing from David, from Solomon, sitting at Solomon's table. And so those are the major themes that connect the Torah portion and the Haftarah reading. Hey, I want to thank you guys for sticking with me and for watching these videos, and I hope they're a blessing to you. I hope that they are stimulating you to think thematically. I hope that they're stimulating you to make thematic connections as you read the scriptures. And as you make these thematic connections, you need to know that Adonai is guiding you. He's opening your heart. He's opening your mind and your eyes to the scriptures. He's showing you how, he's showing you what I call thematic context, okay? Thematic context. That's the context where you're reading one verse, but there may be another verse or another passage a few chapters away or even a few books away that Adonai wants you to know that that passage, some few chapters away or a few books away, that passage has something to teach you. It has something in it to help you understand this one passage that you're looking at. So in other words, what we've done is we've seen how in many times the Haftarah reading and the Torah portion had a multitude of thematic connections, and as we began to make those thematic connections, Adonai's wisdom would unfold before us. So I want to thank you for hanging in there with us and for studying with Restoration of Torah Ministries. And at the end of every book of the Torah, there's something that we say, and it goes something like this. It's Chazak, Chazak, Vanit, Chazek, which means be strong, and may we be strengthened. And so I say that to you, Chazak, Chazak, Vanit, Chazek. And we'll see you in the book of Shemot, the book of names, or the book of Exodus, and we will continue our Haftarah Connections lessons. May Adonai bless you in the name of Yeshua. Amen.
Enough energy, it's getting too loud for me. The room is so bright, it's too hard to see.